Willie D Live.
It's Willie D, y'all, back with another episode of information and instructions to help you navigate through this wild, crazy, beautiful world. In the studio, Jarvis Johnson. What's up, King?
What's up, Willie D?
Good to see you. You still looking good. You working out, huh?
I work out with my arm, with just my right arm. That's it. I just got a swole one arm. That's it. But
you
got to stay in shape, though.
Well, you're looking good, man.
Gotta stay ready for the fight.
Dapper as always.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Right on.
Man, let's get to it straight out the gate, man. How in the hell does two Congress people die within 8 months of each other, back-to-back Congress members in the 18th? How does that happen?
God. I mean, that's the only way I can tell you. But
God?
Yeah, man. I mean,
You don't think nothing nefarious happened?
No, you ain't gonna get me on that one. I think both of them. I think you understand. Both of them had cancer. I think both of them knew they had cancer.
Was that verified?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they both have said it publicly.
It's just, you know what really threw me off is because I knew them personally.
Yeah.
You know, if I didn't know them, I probably wouldn't be so suspicious. But to know, I know that Sylvester Turner, you know, our mayor, he had cancer and he beat it. I thought he had beat it,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know anything was going on with Sheila until a few days or something before she died.
She had a bout with cancer years ago. I think back in 2010, something like that. And I think it was just quiet, but I think it went into remission. She was able to beat it, and then she just kept on her track to continue to be the Congresswoman. But I think again over time, you know, and then it came back more aggressive. And this time around, it wasn't no hiding it, wasn't no beating it, because I think you could see it beating down the body. But listen, don't have me. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you something nefarious didn't happen. I'm not going to sit up here because I don't know that, and I'm not going to be suspicious of that. But I do know that powerful leaders that have come through our communities have been put in the crosshairs. When you want to talk about a Mickey Leland, you're not going to tell me that Mickey's plane went down mysteriously. When you talk about, you know, even a Muhammad Ali, even when you talk about a Richard Pryor, when you talk about people who have strong opinions and vibes and doing phenomenal things in our community, you're not going to tell me something didn't happen to Prince. You're not going to tell me that they didn't come for these people, because I truly believe that they did. But when you take your place in the community as being a leader, and a strong leader, unapologetic leader, sometimes, you know, they'll find ways to shut your mouth and take you out. And it's always amazing to me that the one thing that Muhammad Ali was known for was his gift for gab and his ability to speak, his charming way of and they took that from him. The same way they did with Richard Pryor. They took away their voices.
Yeah.
And they watched, and we watched them wither away, you know, right in front of our eyes. So, you know, again, it could have happened, but it was documented that both of them had cancer.
Mm.
The unfortunate part is that I wish that both of them would have taken the time to heal themselves, step away from politics, become more of the godmother and the godfather, and, you know, train the next generation of people to come behind them, so that we could have that continuity. We could have that succession plan. We could have that opportunity to continue some legacies and can continue to do some of the work that they had gotten done. But unfortunately, I think they were too dedicated to the mission and not too dedicated to their own health.
Mm. Yeah, that was like family members dying, those two right there. That's like family members dying.
Known both of them a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sylvester and I shared the same birthday.
Yeah, and you succeeded Sylvester.
Yeah.
In the 139th, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing this since 2005, right? You started your political career in 2005, right?
Yeah. Well, I was inaugurated 2006.
Right, okay. So as someone who came from the streets of Fifth Ward all the way, you know, to the halls of the Capitol building, how do you reconcile, like, being a lawmaker in a system, within a system that was never built with your community in mind?
Vision. You got to have a plan. You got to have a vision. You got to understand the system by which you're working within. You got to know the system is already built against you. You already got to know that resources will be meager. You already got to know that everything that you do will be scrutinized and kind of taken for granted. Yeah, we don't. But I think when you have a vision and a plan of understanding what the needs of the community are, you don't move from that. And I think what has happened when I got in office, I only had one vision, and that was, okay, let's deal with cleaning up the community. At that time, we're talking about 2005, we had weedy lots everywhere. It was that simple vision that I had, but from there it grew because I realized cutting lots is the easiest thing in the world, but it also is that tangible, visionary thing you could see. You could see the improvement as you go. But I also realized the city of Houston spent $5 million annually cutting vacant lots. Why isn't that money being spent with the people within those communities? And so I created a program by which super neighborhoods would then get the contract to start cutting their own lots. Instead of paying a contractor, now you're paying the super neighborhood. Now the super neighborhood can then hire the young men and young women in the community so that we're creating jobs. So from there, it was, we wanted to cut weeded lots, but then I said, oh, but there's $5 million out there. Now these super neighborhoods have money to protect themselves, because one of the biggest problems that we always had when it came to neighborhoods is that we don't have the money to protect ourselves like a civic association. So we needed these. Our neighborhoods sometimes need the.
We got to cut that, bro. This motherfucker, boy. This motherfucker, boy. Yeah. This motherfucker.
That's your boy. That's our boy from way back when. It's all right.
No good studio wood. Boy, I tell you. Boy. All right, here we go. So, what
But in terms of the neighborhood, when we look at, we had $5 million to use. I saw that as an opportunity so our neighborhoods could have money, so that when these businesses tried to come into our community, or when these lawbreakers tried to come in, the super neighborhood would have money to go and hire a lawyer, or would have money to then update their deed restrictions or whatever the case may be. But we didn't have to rely on the city all the time. And so, again, it started with a vision and not letting go of that, but not being so spread out to where we lose sight of what we need to get done. There's a myriad of problems in our community, but I wanted to make sure that we stayed focused on issues. I'm kind of like that horse when you get in that, on that trolley, on that little buggy. You know how them horses wear them blinders like this? They do that so that they don't get sidetracked. And that's how I am. Right. I like to do like this, want to be right here so that I don't get sidetracked. And then from there we grow. Because I realized that the money that our neighborhoods could get would continue to help us grow and become more self-reliant and self-sufficient, as opposed to always looking for, somebody else to come in and take care of our neighborhood, and yet we still didn't own it. So that's kind of where I come from, and that comes from me watching my mother, Cleo Glenn Johnson, who used to work for the late Congressman Mickey Leland, who was always involved in the community. During the civil rights movement, the reason why we were successful is because there was only one goal, and that was to pass the Civil Rights Bill, to make sure that we had access, to make sure that we had some form of equality, to make sure that we killed this horrible, at that time, what we thought horrible segregation, and to create integration. At some point, I think we need to go back to that segregation, because we got to start looking from within. But when we stay focused, that's how we were able to get the job done. That's how we were able to get the bill passed. Today, everybody's all over the place. Got to go do this, got to go do that. And there's no vision, there's no plan. Therefore, if there's no plan, vision, or roadmap, then you don't know where you're going. And I think that's why it's important that, for me, coming out, in 2005, 2006, I had a vision to improve my community through the money and through the redevelopment of our own community with our own resources.
Yeah. What are your plans for the 18th district? Because I see that you haven't put your name in the hat yet. What's going on?
Being humble is probably one of the hardest things for anybody, especially for a leader. Elected officials, people who've been involved. And, I really want to humble myself to the point where I don't want to be so to the community, you need me, so come vote for me, as opposed to, community, what do you need? And how can I support the community's need? Everybody who runs for office, they just throw their name in the hat and tell the community, this is why you need me. You need me to be your leader because this is what I'm going to do. I've been in this game. I've worked on campaigns. I've worked, for city council. I was, a staffer long before I even became a city council member. I worked in the community long before I decided to even get involved in politics. And then running for the state office, using my, resources and using my experience helped me to get to become the state representative. But if I'm going to run for Congress, I don't want to be so presumptive to tell the community what they need versus me knowing the needs of the community, and as opposed to everybody else saying, just put my name on the ballot, I'm going to just go out there and run, and this is what I'm going to do. I don't think that that's the way it should go. So I'm truly humbling myself because I want the community to know who I am and what I bring to the table versus the promises that are going to be made. Because into this day and age of politics, it's all about just telling the voters what they want to hear. As long as you can tell them what they want to hear, then, you can get from them what you want, and that is the vote. But the community needs to start realizing, what does a congressperson do? What is the responsibility of a state representative? What is the responsibility of a city councilman, of a state senator, so forth and so on? And when they understand that, then you understand we need people with experience. We need people with knowledge. We need people who understand how this game goes. I oftentimes analogize this to this. When you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor, something wrong with my heart, he checks you out and says, you need a heart transplant. And this is serious. I'm going to tell you something. This is going to be hard. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever dealt with. The recovery process is going to be long. But if you stick to the program, I promise you, you'll come through this. I've done this surgery 1,000 times, never lost one patient. Okay, doc, can I go get a second opinion? By all means. Go to the second doctor. The second doctor goes, oh my God, I got a great plan for you. I can get you back in a week. Ain't gonna be too painful. You just sit down for a minute. You're gonna be back stronger, faster, more lively. Oh, Doc, that's great. Oh man, I'm gonna go with you, Doc. I'm gonna go with you. But then you go and you just ask one question, Doc, can you tell me who you've done this with before? Oh, I ain't never did this before. What you mean you've never done? Oh, I've never had this surgery before.
You're going to be first.
So what makes you think that all the things you told me, because it is a good idea, isn't it? That's what politicians and candidates are today. They're literally going to the people and say, I'm going to go and beat the Republicans. I'm going to kick the Republicans' butt. I'm going to fight to protect women's reproductive rights. I'm going to fight. That's not... That's national politics. You're supposed to say that. You're supposed to do that.
But don't you have to start somewhere?
You do.
You got to start somewhere,
you
right?
have to.
So before a politician can get that big vote, before a person can have tenure, they have to start somewhere.
That's right.
So, should they start in the community, or should they start? Can they I mean, would it be a good idea if somebody really is about their life, if they really have these high hopes and great plans? Is it a smart idea for a politician to just say, you know what, that's an open seat right there, and I think I can beat that guy right there. I'm running right now.
And that is the way the system is set up. And if that's what the people want, then that's how it goes. There is no right way of doing it. For me, and what I saw and what I know is to be the successful route is to know and have people who are knowledgeable about this process. When you look at politics today, you literally have people who have no earthly idea of what they're doing. They just have an idea. And so when they get there, they're just being disruptive. They're not being productive. And so I am looking for people to come to the table and say, this is what I want to do. Here's the vision. Here's the plan. People being an elected official is the one job, the most consequential job there is in this country. And you need not one iota of experience. You need not one iota of a plan. You just simply need to be voluminous, and you need to just simply, have a name that people like, and they're going to vote for you. But it's like you sitting in the stands and you're talking, and man, that coach ain't that's a sorry coach, man. The Houston Texans coach has been, has done this work, have done amazing job, have played football all his life, studied this game, but you in the stands think you can do a better job. That's what we are. And people decide that they want to run just because they didn't agree with one thing that this person said. And unfortunately, this is where we are today. Look at our community and you go, why haven't our community progressed over the years? What happened? What happened to why did the progress stop? And again, it's because we have too many individuals deciding that they want to be leaders as opposed to, wanting to be activists in the community or even wanting to work in somebody's office or learn this game or come to the table with some semblance of a plan. We got to just stop letting people just run. Again, people can run if they want. I'm not saying they shouldn't have the ability to run. Don't complain about what the community looks like if you decide to vote for these people.
I think Donald Trump started all of this, man. Now, let me back up. I won't say started it, but he absolutely is responsible for a lot of this incompetence. Like when people realize that this motherfucker can be the president of the United States, like the highest office in the land. This the best we can. This riding a low down stank this it. Man, I'm running. If he can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. If he can be captured on a tape saying he sexually assaults women and gets away with it and still get voted to become president of the United States, hell, if he can do it, I can do it. And I think that opened up everything. Like even with when you consider the way elected officials communicate these days, oftentimes they communicate with very nasty language. Mm-hmm. They're on the attack a lot. They do a lot of name calling. I never saw that before. I always thought that was uncouth for a dignitary. But that's what they do now. Right. It's a big thing, and it seems like the more they do it, the more they're rewarded.
Mm-hmm. Because it's all antics. It's antics over action. It's volume over vision. And I agree with you. It's more prominent now because of Donald Trump. But you got to remember, this didn't start with Donald Trump.
Right.
You had Ronald
and that's
Reagan.
Why I rephrased it.
You had Ronald Reagan as a movie star decide he wanted to be the governor. You had Arnold Schwarzenegger and then Jesse the Body Ventura. You had this in the past. Social media and those of alike have really pulled back the covers, and now people are wanting to do it more and more. So I will totally agree with you. In terms of this partisanship that we're living within, the Republicans have always been like that. They've always been unapologetic. They've always been, bulls in China shop. They don't care because they know they got the backing of their own party. There ain't nobody going to deviate from them. You got this dude who said all these horrible things, 7 bankruptcies and, 4 casinos. He's bankrupt and, doing all of these heinous things, 3 baby mamas and, leaving the next one for the youngest one. And so it's all there. We know that. But now the Democrats are seeing the success of the Republicans, and now every time you look up, they out there cursing. It's like when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. Now the Democratic the Democratic slogan is, when they go low, we go in the grass with them. We gonna go low too. We gonna go lower.
What are the pros and cons of that?
Going low?
Going lower.
When you get into a mudslinging contest with a pig, there 2 things gonna happen. Both of y'all gonna get muddy, but the pig gonna like it. And so, you got one side, they enjoy this. Donald Trump wakes up every day looking for a fight. He talks about somebody.
That's because ain't nobody whooped his ass.
Well, how do you
it's just like any other bully, right? Bullies wake up every day looking for the action. They looking for somebody to push around.
Yeah.
The moment they're met with the same amount of resistance or greater resistance, that person never had to worry about that bully anymore. That bully might go find somebody else to bully, but they won't try you. Oh. See, so that's because ain't nobody put something on his ass hard enough to make him retreat. That's all that is.
I agree to a certain extent, and here's why. Because when Donald Trump does it, and he calls people out of their names, and he makes fun of people, and then when they do it back, he then cries to the media, that's not how you're supposed to talk to the president of the United States. That's unprofessional. The problem is the media. So the media gives him a pass. So Fox News, and I look at Fox News and listen to Fox News probably a little too more than I need to. And I look at it for a variation of reasons. Number one, if you're going to have an enemy, you better know how your enemy thinks and how they talk. And number two, I use it for comic relief because they say some of the craziest, most asinine thing that's out there. And you go, wow. And number three, I do it to make myself mad and get fired up. But when you look at Fox, they'll never, ever, ever say one bad thing about Trump. But they'll talk about the Democrats and they'll call them antichrist, they'll call them rapists, they'll call them un-American. And so the listeners of Fox are hearing that every single day. Now go over to CNN. And CNN is not going to be as vitriol as Fox. They'll say, well, Donald Trump was wrong for this and da-da-da. But they'll also compliment him. They'll also say all the great. So they're trying to be balanced. And so for us on the Democratic side, when we're listening to CNN, so we're hearing good things about Trump and we're hearing bad things about Trump. Over here, they're only seeing it one side. So this is why Republicans continue to win, because the media is skewed all towards the Republicans. There's not one bad thing said about Republicans on Fox News. Over here, they're not making fun of them. They're not calling them out. They're not embarrassing them. They're not making them feel, second guessing what they said. They're literally, going, well, he said it. Let's move on. And I think that is the problem. This is why Democrats won't win in 2028, because the media is controlling the masses. Think about this. Willie. When Joe Biden was nominated as the nominee for the Democratic Party, and then he goes on to win, 6 months into his presidency, CNN is already reporting, is he too old? And then all of a sudden, that caught on all throughout the Democratic Party. Of course, the Fox News, that's the only thing they were ever saying. Sleepy Joe, Joe's too old. Like, your dude is the same age. I don't know what you're talking about. But they said it, but then CNN comes over here and starts asking Democrats, what do you think? It starts catching on. And now even the Democratic Party, so his approval ratings went lower than Donald Trump. A man who has grabbed women, who have raped women, who have been in the Epstein files, who have done some of the most heinous, harmful, disgusting things on earth. And his approval ratings were higher than Joe Biden, who brought us through COVID, who improved our markets, it's all about, again, the media. Trump says it, and everybody runs with it, as opposed to CNN going, that's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie. We ain't going to let it, and we are not going to. Because some things we don't even need to report on. Why is CNN reporting on the fact that Trump wants an investigation into the celebrities that endorsed Kamala Harris? Come on. They've made that into news. And so now, again, it's the same thing that you and I have had to go through as black men. They demonize us on TV, and so every time they see us, they don't even know us. They're already painted a picture of who they think we are. That's what the news media has done with Republicans and Democrats. And that's why if we don't get this media under control to start truly being balanced, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
Well, the media has always been complicit in the propaganda against people like me and you. And not just us, but around the world. The media has always been complicit. The thing is, here's the deal with the media right now. The media is scared to death that if they say something to run Donald Trump hot, Donald Trump is going to make them pay some incredible taxes and things of that nature. Donald Trump has weaponized his position as president against anybody that disagrees with him, even if it's a major constitution. You saw what he's dealing with Harvard, right? Mm-hmm. Because his son couldn't get into Harvard.
Right.
Now, so he wants to make Harvard pay tariffs. Mm-hmm. You know, he wants to make Harvard pay taxes and stuff, right? This is
not letting foreign students. He don't want no more foreign students in. So he's yeah.
He wants to charge them up. He wants to dig into their endowment because they're going against him, and because they said no, we're gonna we like what we're doing over here, and we don't need your input. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna weaponize my presidency to make you bend to my will. And CNN knows that they'll be in the crosshairs too. In fact, they've been in the crosshairs of Donald Trump for a long time. But now they see Donald Trump more than ever don't just have the power, but he's willing to exercise his power to harm them financially. And that is why they're walking a tightrope. And they're and they're kissing his butt. Now, you spoke about the Democratic Party, being the media being biased toward the Democratic Party, but
not towards, against.
Well, against the Democratic Party, right? So, but the thing is that the Republicans say the same thing about the Democrat. They say the same thing about CNN being biased toward Democrats. This is what I want to know. You being a lifelong member of the Democratic Party, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever not been a member of the Democratic Party?
No.
Okay, so lifelong member of the Democratic Party. You can answer this better than anybody because you came up in it, you became a lawmaker, and you stand on it today. Why is it that the Democratic Party is not loyal to the black community as the black community is loyal to it?
That's a phenomenal question, brother. A phenomenal question. And I think two things. Number one, the black community has not created the black agenda by which the Democratic Party must follow. We haven't given them a closed mouth won't ever get fed. And we so busy, we've lost sight, as I previously said, we've lost sight on what our plan is. When we wanted the Civil Rights Act to pass, we only focused on that. Now, the Democrats have thrown everything, and now it's women's reproductive rights. Now it's LGBT. Now it's immigration. It's everything but us. Because if the Democrat was serious about losing these races and losing its base, then you would focus on the number one base you have, which is 83% of all black folk gonna vote Democratic. And the reason why that number is even lower today is because you haven't addressed any of the issues that are important to us. Reparations. It's been important to us, but that's really not important. What do we do with that? It's too hard. It's too hard to figure out. Well, lynching laws. are still on the books. We've tried, but we don't really. You've never fully funded HBCUs. So what?
Which is something you champion. You champion for the reform of financial reform for HBCUs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the thing is that why haven't the Democratic Party ever done? Because we have forgot as black leaders to put forth our vision and our plan for what we think in the direction that we should go. What is it? We know the problems that exist in our community. Houston's problems is not black community's problems, are no different than Dallas's black community, or San Antonio's black community, or Austin, or even El Paso. Anywhere there's a congregation of black folk, our problems are going to be the same. So why haven't we addressed those? Because we have been too busy worrying about this and that and this and that, as opposed to coming together and said, here are the issues. Town hall meetings need to be had across this state to come to a consensus on what a plan looks like for us. Are we going to deal with the HBCU finance? Are we going to deal with healthcare disparities? Are we going to deal with criminal justice? Are we going to can't do it all at one time. Let's get this real. You ain't going to solve the black community's problems in one session. But we can start chipping away at it. And how we do that is the same way we did during the civil rights. Either you're going to respect us or you're going to expect us. And what's going to happen is if you don't want to listen to us, and if you don't want to compromise on some things, then we're going to have to go back to the days of yesteryear when we said, shut it down. Shut it down. Because the only thing that anybody and any time they ever respect us is when we finally decide that we're going to boycott them financially. But unfortunately today, we don't know what that means. We don't know how to stop buying stuff. We don't know how to stop enriching our enslavers. We don't know how to stop enriching those that are oppressing us because we too busy trying to impress one another. We too busy trying to buy our way out of oppression. And it ain't gonna happen. But when we come to a consensus on a plan, now we're talking about this is where we're going. But right now, we don't have a plan.
Explain buying your way out of oppression.
When you think you got that new car, you got that Uchi Gucci Wuchi, you got, the Mercedes, you got the Maybach, you think you've arrived. Drive on the wrong side of town at the wrong time of the day, and somebody just gonna pull you over. And we forget that those things are still happening. That you're not supposed to be driving in that car. You're not supposed to be, looking the way you do. Don't get it twisted. We think we can buy our way out by thinking, oh, I have a bigger house. I live in a gated community. Turn your music up a little too loud, or let your kids have a party. It may be one too many people. And when they have parties, and it just be, they go get what they call it, white girl wasted. They go. It's all good. Those are kids just having fun. Let your children have a party in that same neighborhood, and that's a bunch of thugs terrorizing our neighborhood and making our neighborhood unsafe. You didn't buy your way out. You just simply went to a different neighborhood and a different zip code, and now you still got the same problem. So we think we've arrived often when we certainly haven't. Because, again, you may have made it, but unless the rest of your community have made it, then you're just simply, living in the big house while you got, folks struggling out in the fields.
Man, how hard is it to get a law passed?
It's not hard. It's not hard.
Well, I know you had some trouble, like with some really major laws that I would have thought would have been academic.
Yeah.
But you couldn't get them passed. For example, House Bill 2908. That was something that you spoke against. You out of 150 lawmakers, you were the only one to speak against the idea of charging people for questioning the police. Mm-hmm. Questioning the police, they wanted to make it a hate crime to question the police. Out of 150 lawmakers in Texas, you were the only one to speak against it. Mm-hmm. Explain to me how that's not problematic.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, that is very problematic. not everybody is going to see. A lot of times politics is about going along to get along. A lot of times it's about
right, because you can't do it by yourself.
It's
right.
about a compromise. It's
right.
about what hill do I want that I'm willing to die on, right? And so if you got to remember, a lot of times laws apply to everybody. They're only applicable to some. You get it? So
yeah,
I realize I'm in that law that it is applicable to when it comes to police. That is applicable to me. That ain't gonna be applicable to their children. Their children didn't go through that. Their sons and their family members didn't go through that. So I get it. And so when I see something that I realize that is going to be impactful, not to me, but to my children and my community, I will certainly stand up and say, I know this is not going to be popular with the cops. I know this ain't going to be popular with the union. I know they're going to be mad at me for this. Yeah, I'm going to have to look over my shoulder, But at the end of the day, that's not going to thwart my efforts to stand up and say what is right. So you got Democrats that oftentimes it don't apply to them. They might be Democrat, but they ain't walked that mile in the shoes that I've had. They haven't been in my community. They don't understand what goes on. I thank God that my mother taught me about my ancestry, taught me about where my family came from, taught me about my great-great-great-grandfather. And every time I speak against banning or speak to try to ban Confederate Heroes Day Confederate Heroes Day is a state holiday.
Yeah.
And when I wanted to ban it, and those are heroes that I said, no. My grandfather also fought in the Civil War. Oh, of course he did. I said, no, you don't get it. You don't understand it. My great-great-great-grandfather fought for the Confederacy. And they sit there and they scratch their head and say, yeah, I know. My great-great-great-grandfather was a rapist. He was a pedophile. He was a slave owner. Therefore, who do you think he's a hero to? I'm not here to say that man was a hero. So again, people don't understand what we go through, and so they're not going to fall on that sword. They're not going to down that hill, and they're not going to speak up for things like that. I live this every day, and I'm going to speak up.
That Confederate Heroes Day, that's January 19th, right? Is it January 19th?
Yeah.
I know it's January. It's in the teens. I think it's
January 19th.
It's either 16th or 19th. I know.
Yeah.
But it's a trip that they would actually celebrate something like that, which lets you know that
where it came from?
They're all on the same team, man.
You know where it came from? In 1973, when we elected 5 black elected officials, new black elected officials to the State House, 7. Miss T, Representative Sophronia Thompson. It was Mickey, Craig Washington, Anthony Hall. It all came down to the state. Miss T put out a bill recognizing, not creating a holiday, not trying to make it a state holiday. She only wanted to recognize Martin Luther King on his birthday. And so what happened was...
So that's the 19th, January 19th.
Well, see, these Republicans then came, and they said, well, he's not from Texas and da-da-da-da-da, and therefore we're not going to do it. So in response to that, to make sure, because they're playing chess, not checkers, because they thought 3 steps ahead. So then they said, oh, well, we need to create something. And so they created Confederate Heroes Day as opposed to oppose Martin Luther King, and they did it to put it on January 19th. So therefore, you can't have 2 state holidays within the same month. So you can't ever you can't celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday as a state holiday. Right. Because you got this Confederate Heroes Day. And so they did that in response, just to attack, to make sure we ain't gonna let y'all celebrate this dude. And the thing about it is the the funny thing about it is they said Martin Luther King wasn't from Texas, so therefore they wasn't going to do it. But they went and found this boy, I forgot his name, but he ain't from Texas, but we're celebrating his birthday. That's why they have it on the 19th. It's his birthday.
Interesting.
It's his birthday. And I'm drawing a blank right now. I'm sorry, but I'll get the information. But yeah, it's his birthday is the reason why they celebrate Confederate Heroes Day on January 19th. And so oftentimes those 2 days fall on the same. Martin Luther King, the National Martin Luther King Day, and Confederate Heroes Day oftentimes fall on the same day.
What's one of the laws that you wanted to get passed and you was most passionate about that where you ran into a wall?
One of the ones that pops in my head, number one, is sickle cell registry. That's a law that I wanted to put in forth that just simply would have created a registry so that people who are afflicted with sickle cell, we could actually find out how many people actually have sickle cell, who have the trait, that we can then, once we know how many people actually have it, we can then take that to the researchers. Because you're looking at, if you're familiar with sickle cell, you've heard of sickle cell, a lot of times we don't know how many people really got it. How many people have the trait?
Who does it affect most?
Black people.
Yeah.
Ironically, you're starting to see a lot of Hispanics. There are some cases of white kids that are getting it. Certainly, you got a Middle Eastern community that is being afflicted, but primarily it is a black disease. And so the governor, I passed it in both House and the Senate, but then it died on the governor vetoed it because he said he wanted to protect the privacy of those individuals. And I wrote him and told him, you didn't want to protect the privacy of all those cancer registries that we have. You didn't want to protect the privacy of, those burn pit registries that we have. Why all of a sudden did you decide that you wanted to now protect the privacy of people who are afflicted with sickle cell? Because if you had talked to anybody with sickle cell, they would have told you we want to be on that registry because we want the pharmaceutical industry to know how many people are afflicted so that they can start to invest money into finding a cure, finding, some relief for us, because the only relief sickle cell patients have are pain management. And as we all know what's happening with pain management and opioids. And when you start realizing the number of people who go to the hospital because they are in crisis who are afflicted with sickle cell, oftentimes at the hospital ignores them and thinks that they're simply drug seeking and put them in a corner and give them Tylenol too and say, just sit there. And so now those same people have to go to the streets to find relief from the pain that they're having. And so they have to go and find it from the street pharmacists. And unfortunately, we see what is happening. But the governor chose to hijack my bill because I voted against his voucher bill that he had put forth, and of course that I wasn't going to support. But he killed the bill.
And what was that? The voucher for more wheelchairs?
No. I want to talk about that. The voucher bill to provide vouchers to private schools.
Private schools.
Taxpayer dollars giving money to kids going to private school.
Why are the Republicans so adamant about providing those vouchers?
They don't know. I'm being serious. They literally don't.
Are they
know.
just doing it because the Democrats?
Yeah, no, they're doing it because the governor said it.
Don't want it.
The governor said it, and Lieutenant Governor said it, and so they're just going with it because they understand it's going to hurt their communities too. Rural Texas is going to be hurt because there ain't any private schools in rural Texas. You know what I'm saying? So how in the world all of a sudden that you think this is going to help you? Because you're saying, children should have choices. And you're like, they do. Those parents have choices to send their children wherever they want to go. And if their education system where they are is bad, they have every right to then homeschool them. If there are no private schools where they are,
But they can't enroll their kid into a public school that's not in their district, though.
Not in their district, no. But if that public school is bad, what happens?
if the public school is bad, then the kid gets a bad education.
So what happened to all the kids that coming from our community? You demand better. Mm-hmm. The same way you tell us that we should be demanding better if our schools are horrible, when our schools were poor and our schools were not producing anything, they blamed, it wasn't HISD wasn't the problem. It was just that school was the problem. So now all of a sudden, here you are in rural Texas. If your rural town is bad, your rural school is bad, and you can demand better. Let's see what the problem is. But you and I both know what this voucher thing is about. You have very affluent people who don't want their children in these schools with certain students. And so they're using this as a way to say, well, my child deserves. And I said to the Democrats, sometimes you got to use their energy against them. And I said, look, man, if they want vouchers, you can have vouchers. But you can have your money. You can't have my money. Like, you pay school taxes on your house. And if you want to take your little funky $2,500 and go on, but you can't have mine. And see, what the Republicans are using is my money, your money, and everybody else's money to give to these affluent people. We could have come up with a sound compromise, but, it was all or nothing. Because I truly believe, if you got money, go on. Go on. But you ain't going to use my money.
I get it. Because they know that kids in lower income neighborhoods are going to go to the closest school to where they live no matter what. Most kids.
Minus busing.
Most kids.
Right.
Yeah. Most kids are going to go to the closest school to where they live. They're not going to go, even though that school that's, 10 miles away might be better. They're not going to go to that school that's 10 miles away. And plus, they got tricks. They got so many tricks. They're not going to allow those schools to be empty. Those schools that are in those neighborhoods, they're not going to allow those schools to go empty while kids from everywhere get to go to this prestigious school. They're going to put a cap on it.
Right. And I will agree and disagree a little bit. When you look at Kashmir has 2,500 students that are zoned to Kashmir, and yet they only have 700-800 students. Where's the other?
I was about to say, when did Kashmir get 2,500 students?
Well, okay, I'm looking at statistics from old.
Zoned. Yeah, right.
Just zoned.
Yeah, right, zoned. Gotcha.
Zoned.
Yeah, I got you.
So Wheatley, same thing. Yates, same. You can look at most of the schools that are in our neighborhoods. They have more students zoned there than obviously go there. But you got a Bel Air that's busting at the seams. You got a Lamar that's busting at the seams, HSPVA or Health Professions, or, some of these other schools are busting at the seams. So, so I agree, yes, those that don't have the resources or parents don't know how to work the system are stuck. While the other kids that know how to maneuver and manipulate, they can go to school wherever they want within HISD. So, but I'm one to say, look, we got to stop all that. If you zone here, you need to go here. I get it from both sides of being a parent, because I'm like, if that school is horrible, I should have a choice on where I send my child. So I get it to a certain extent, to a certain degree. But I wanted to. Go ahead. I ain't gonna jump ahead of you because I know you got a lot of questions.
No, well, one of the things that I wanted to ask about was these cops, man. Like, I know that the cops can be held accountable, but they're not being held accountable because of laws that are put in place. It's not just the laws, but it's also the higher ups. The people who are in the commanding positions. They're hiring them. They're giving them breaks when they do dirty or whatever. But the laws, there's so many laws that are meant to protect them. How is it that your constituents, not your constituents, but your colleagues go into this room and create a law that makes a police officer untouchable, virtually untouchable?
Qualified immunity.
How do they do that with a good conscience, and how do the people flip the script?
I think when you look at it's marketing 101. We look at public servants with a certain level of reverence, a certain level of respect. You look at people walking through the airport, somebody in their military uniform, everybody's walking up to them, thank you for your service, thank you for your service. You may not even know, you don't even know who this person is. They're just in a uniform, thank you for your service. You get to get on the plane first. And, so we see a cop, and the narrative is they put their lives on the line every single day. This is a tough job. This is a job that is so very tough and difficult for them to do, and the only thing that we do is we demonize them. The only thing that we do is that we talk bad about cops. These are self-inflicted wounds that we're going to have to start addressing. Because at the end of the day, qualified immunity needs to go away. Because in every sense of the word, everybody should be held accountable. The same way as a citizen, I'm held accountable for any actions that I take. And the same way that a cop needs to be held accountable for any actions that he takes. Please don't tell me that I only have a split second to make a decision on a life-threatening situation. I only got a split second. That split second always seems to be longer when it's somebody else. But when it's a bald-headed, 6 foot, 250-pound, muscular build dude that split second is just a split second. How do we keep having the ability to have patience for others, but then we don't have no patience for these people? And then, oh my God, I accidentally shot him. I meant to tase him. Oh my God, I shot him because I don't know why I shot him. There's story after story after story after story. Imagery is our biggest problem. We've said this before. The media has demonized us, and so that's why when you look at certain individuals that are killed, it's like, But police officers should be held accountable for their actions. And it's difficult to get in a room and fight against that because I think police officers have the ability to play on the heartstrings and the consciousness of, I put my life on the line every single day. And I agree with that to a certain extent.
What's that extent? A certain extent.
You don't have to initiate problems. You can, you don't have to escalate them. You can de-escalate them. You don't have to run in here being a cowboy. You can simply sit back and kind of, survey the area and be like, okay, what's going on? You can understand when you walk into a situation, it is always going to be, the anxiety is always going to be high. But you don't need to then go in and tell everybody to respect just you, and yet you don't give respect. You're going to simply, you're challenging someone's manhood. Or you're challenging, who they are even as a human, just because you think you deserve respect because you walked into the room. I'm sorry. I can't respect somebody just because you walked in the room and told everybody to shut up. We were having a conversation just by ourselves. So again, you find oftentimes you're escalating situations in certain communities while you're de-escalating them in others. And so I believe that if you start looking at how we respond to these things, then I think cops will then start understanding the consequences of their actions will be dire. And I think we've seen that over the last few years. It ain't been a lot, but only a few. We finally saw Derek Chauvin be prosecuted. We saw the lady cop out of Dallas who walked into the brother's apartment and shot him. We've seen scenarios and situations where we are finally starting to prosecute these cops, because we need to start saying, this may not be the job for you then. If you don't have the right temperament, this may not be the job for you. You're probably going to need to find a new line of work. But is it turning fast enough? I don't think so. But I believe that if we took away qualified immunity, that would hold cops accountable, that would make sure that you just don't have a get out of jail free pass, or, I think you will see police officers change their positions if cities start to be more financially liable. You'll start to see cops.
If the cops became more financially liable.
I agree with that too.
Because
they need to have their own insurance.
Exactly. Just like we have our own insurance. Mm-hmm. Like if I go out and harm somebody on the job or whatever, they come to my concert and somebody get hurt, they might sue me too.
That's right.
Anybody can get sued.
That's right.
But they can't be sued. It's like it's time for them to end this whole thing about, we employ them. Obviously this is a situation where the employee got all the damn power. Like, people love to say, well, they work for us, you work for us. Man, when the last time an employee talked to his boss the way the police talk to citizens,
Right.
Like something there absolutely needs to change. Let's go back to when you had your personal encounter with the police and they stopped you. What was that situation like when you were, what was that, 2010? When was that?
Mm-hmm.
That was 2010, yeah. So they pull you over. And they ended up, why did they let you go? Besides the fact that you was an innocent man, why did they let you go without putting hands on you?
Well, they ain't say they didn't put hands on me. I was handcuffed and thrown in the backseat of a car. I didn't get beat up.
But they roughed you up.
Them handcuffs. My hand was numb for about a week. I'm not gonna say I got hit, anything like that. I was threatened. Let's go all the way back. My office is in Fifth Ward in Frenchtown, right off of Liberty Road. I had been getting on the police chief because coming over that bridge from Lyons to Liberty, there's a bridge. At the bottom of that bridge, cops were always sitting there. And I know this because my youth center is there, and I used to drive my van every day, and the cops would be there. And I would always think, this is so disingenuous. You got crack house, gangs, prostitute. You got all this violence going on, and y'all are stopping people who are going 40 and a 35. Like, come on, man. Number one, I realized you're constantly criminalizing Johnny Q. Citizen. Number two, you're killing our economic market. Nobody wants to come over here. Every time you drive over here, it's like, oh my God, they go, I don't want to go buy no gas. I don't want to go to the restaurant. I don't want to go do any of that. But I was giving the police and the chief a hard time about that because I just thought it was wrong. And so we were going back and forth. My alarm goes off in my building. It's 8 o'clock at night. My alarm goes off in my building. I'm driving. 8 o'clock at night, I'm coming off the hill. And I hit Liberty Road. Cop throw his lights on me. I travel 2 blocks. 2. And I turn on Staple Street and travel 100 yards and pull into my building. A total of 47 seconds. From the time he turned his lights on to the time I pulled in my driveway.
What, you say you was fleeing?
Yeah. They said I was, and I was, and so finally, after they come, I explained to the officer, you hear all those police? That's for you, because you were, I said, sir, I was not. I literally pulled into my building where I thought it was safe. Here are the lights. I know my building. And on top of that, sir, my alarm is going off. You can hear it. You can literally hear my alarm going off right now, sir. I'm coming here for that. He wasn't hearing that. And man, cops came out of nowhere. It was about 12 police cops show up. Okay. So he lets me out of the car. I said, sir, I'm not trying to pull no, I'm not doing, I'm City Council Member Jarvis Johnson. I know who you are. I've seen you before. Okay. All right. Well, you need to come. I said, sir, go ahead and call your sergeant. Let's get this handled. And so I'm standing there. Another cop comes over and he says, put your hands behind your back. I said, sir, I just talked to him. We're good. Just wait. He said, put your hands. I said, sir, I'm talking to him. And he pulls out his stick, hits it on the ground. Put your hands. Cool. Put my hands behind my back. Then they put me in the car. Long story short, sergeant comes and they said, we're going to go ahead and arrest you for felony evading arrest. And I said, you're arresting me for felony evading arrest. Now, let's get this straight. What am I evading, sir? Do you think that I am inebriated? No, sir. Do I have warrants for my arrest? No, sir. Do I have any weapons? Did you see me break any laws? No, sir. So what am I evading, sir? But you're still going to take... He said, well, according to the DA, you could have pulled over here, here, and here. I said, sir...
They got on the phone with the DA that fast?
Oh, yeah. But here's the funny thing, Willie. Here's the funny thing. Within 4 minutes of me being pulled over, gotten out the car, TV station was there.
Oh, they was already... Okay,
TV station was there.
Was playing.
Camera. So when I got put in the back of the car, here go the TV station. Right there. Jarvis Johnson being arrested.
Which station?
Don't worry about all that. It was 26.
Okay.
Yeah. It was 26. I ain't gonna not say it just because. Right. But I ain't gonna. I'm not holding them, making them they did something wrong. I mean, I'm sure they wanting to sell stories just like everybody else. It was a great story.
Yeah. A
great story. But again, that it happens. I got pulled over again. In 2014. On Shepherd. I own On Beach restaurant. I'm on Shepherd. I'm crossing Cross Timbers. Cop gets behind me. There's construction all going on, and I live right off of Shepherd. I make the U-turn and pull into the gas station. Now, again, Willie, I'm from Fifth Ward, man. I'm born in Fifth Ward, raised in Acres Homes. I know what time it is. I'm not, and again, no matter how much of a law-abiding citizen I am, I'm still no fool. I'm not going to pull over in no dark corner, no dark alley, or no road where I don't have no evidence, or at least somebody watching me. Made a simple U-turn. And the cop jumps out the car, pulls his gun, and walks to my door and tells me, what the are you doing? Like, And again, same thing. Felony evading arrest. Now, he only wrote the ticket, but didn't have. Now he's doing a traffic stop on a Saturday night at about 9, 10 o'clock at night. And at this point, we had already passed the law that you have to have dash cams. So I'm like, where's your dash? Is your dash cam on? His dash cam broke.
Man, that's something that y'all should work on as lawmakers. That's something that maybe that's something that you can. I mean, it's going to be a big fight, man. But them damn cops turning those cameras off, just somehow, some way, they got everything on camera except right before they did the killing.
Right.
They got everything else on camera.
Again, that's qualified immunity. Once you take away qualified immunity, because any court or any jury would be able to say if the rule and the law is if it's not on your camera and if this is unless there is some visible evidence that this camera was broke, not by you, but simply it malfunctioned on its own, whatever the case may be, because we can't ever know what technology is. But like you said, sometimes it's just ironic. It's just ironic. But if that happens, you're right. Absolutely. That's you should be prosecuted immediately. Immediately.
You never answered the question whether you were going to run for the 18th.
I just told you. I humbly am wanting to talk with the people. I don't want to continue to go back and tell the people I'm the best thing for you. I want the people to make a decision because you got 20 people in this race, man. 20 people in this race that are pretending to run for this office. I'm going to tell people like this. Did you
say pretending or intending?
No, pretending. Pretending. Freudian slip. I don't know. Maybe I meant to say intended. But, man, you got to remember this is a special election, right, which means Democrat and Republican all the same. Now, if you got 20 Democrats running,
there's no Republican going to win this.
Seat. No, they're not going to win.
Yeah,
it's not going to win.
That's not going to happen.
It's not. But it's going to be real interesting if you allow a Republican to get into the runoff. really interesting that you allowed them to get that far, because we're sitting over here fighting amongst and there's going to be a very low turnout, This is put on in November, on a Tuesday with nothing else on the ballot. And then there's going to be a runoff in December on a Saturday. And, it's hard pressed to sometimes get Democrats to come back out for runoffs, especially on a Saturday. And lo and behold, don't let the weather be bad. We can be in some real trouble. So, no, I don't think a Republican will win, but it will make for an interesting race. And I don't think the 18th can afford that. We just buried 2 elected officials, and I would venture to believe that's the first time in probably the history of the United States where 2 representatives died back to back within 6 months of each other of the same ailment, and from one district, right? So I think, again, I really believe that the people need to smarten up, wise up, and understand what is it that they need? What is it that they want? And we can't leave it and make this into a popularity contest. This is not high school. This is not somebody running for student government. This is somebody we need to have experience, knowledge, and a plan and a vision to move forward. I can sit here and tell you all day, out of everybody in the race who will be there, I'm the only person who has worked in a partisan body. I'm the only person who has ever wrote a bill, who has ever passed a bill in a Republican-led body. I have passed over 50 bills. I have collected between city council and my state office $2.1 billion to bring back to my district. You can ask Google, Siri, or AI, anybody you want. They'll tell you that I can demonstrate, not simply give you promises and tell you, I'm going to make your heart transplant the greatest it's ever been, but I ain't never did this before. I'm not going to do that. So again, I want to humble myself first before I just decide I'm the best thing for y'all. Y'all need to vote for me.
You still haven't told me if you're running for the 18th Congressional.
Let me tell you one of the reasons why I think it's important. I want to go back, because you never asked me about DEI. We talked about DEI before. Mm-hmm. You know how the Republican Party said DEI, and they don't want no. Because I'm going to tell you, sometimes you got to use their energy against them. Governor Abbott put this bill up. He's going to get rid of all DEI at universities. And this is why I think it's important that you have people with experience and knowledge and a plan. Out of everybody on that floor, I was the only Democrat that said, I'm with you, Governor. I'm 100% with you. DEI is bad. And if you want to get into this school, you need to get in on your own merit. All the Democrats looking at me like I'm crazy. Republicans are saying, Jarvis, oh my God, you get it.
Now, I already know that they go for them too.
I already know DEI is not what they think it is.
Right.
We already got federal laws that prohibit anybody from being hired based on race, color, creed, sexual orientation, or religion. That's a federal law. You can't do that, right? They are pretending DEI is something that it's not. But what I did is I realized, let's go play with them. Let's go play some money then. Let's play this money game. And so I got an amendment. And the amendment was that if you want to get into these universities, that you must get in on your own merit. Because you know what? And I told all of them, because you know what I don't like is that top 10% rule. Because the top 10% rule is if you're in the top 10% of your graduating class, that you can get into some of these flagship universities like UT, Texas A&M.
Right. That's out now.
Regardless of whether or not you got the grades, but you're in the top 10% of your class.
Right.
So I'm using that energy, and they were like, Jarvis, you get it. I said, sign this amendment. They signed the amendment, and I filed it. And then they called me up for my amendment. And as soon as I filed it, the phone started ringing. All of them come running, take me off. I don't want to be on that no more. Take me off. I said, well, I thought we were in order to be in these schools, you must get in on your own merit. No, not right now. I don't think I agree with you, but not right now. You know why that is, huh, Willie? See, because if you want to get into these universities, that means UT, Texas A&M, U of H, Texas Tech, and all these other universities wouldn't have a football team because none of their students qualify academically for the university. NCAA qualifies them because you got to only have a 900 SAT and a 2.5. Well, you can't get into UT, Johnny, just a regular citizen, just a regular student with a 2.5 and a 900 SAT. You can't get into A&M. You can't get into a lot of these universities with that. So they were going to lose all of their athletes. Not just black, white, Asian, Mexican, it didn't matter.
Yeah, but you know, they know how to move the goalpost, though.
But see, what was going to happen is, but see, this is what I'm looking at. See, now, those same students who can't get into your university still could get into a university. So now, come on back home. TSU is welcoming. Prairie View is welcoming. Houston-Tillotson is welcoming. You know, Wiley College is welcoming. You can get in there. And so now you're looking at a TSU beating the brakes off of U of H because now we got all of the top athletes. It's $1 billion industry. Because ain't nobody want to go watch, you know, some sub-football or sub-basketball. Now you got all these 5-star athletes. You got all these named athletes. Now these universities got billions of dollars to play with to rebuild their universities. So had this bill passed, our universities would have had that same money. But unfortunately, you know, everyone's like, they don't want to deal with that. And so we ended up, my amendment ended up dying. But see, again, I'm not playing checkers, I'm playing chess with you. So I'm going to use that energy against you. Second thing about DEI is this. The governor, again, got to get in on your own merit. So I wrote a bill, and my staff convinced me to take it down.
Tell me you said something about legacy.
No. I wrote a bill to get rid of all wheelchair ramps in the state. And my point was, Governor, if you want to get into that building, then you must get in on your own merit. Mm-hmm. Why should anybody make it easier for you to get in?
Huh.
But yet you're telling us that all the other people... See, wheelchair ramps is a part of DEI. Mm. Braille is a part of DEI. Subtitles are part of DEI. You know what I'm saying? All of that. These things are a part of DEI, so don't be so short-sighted. You see, again, laws apply to everybody, only applicable to some. So he didn't even realize how he's a beneficiary of it. So that's why I wrote the bill. You know, and I really hate that I did not file it. But, you know, my staff was like, we'll spend more time trying to explain what you're trying to do versus people really understand it. And I was short-sighted. I think people would have understood it.
I was about to say, I think you should have spent more time doing that. Exactly that, explaining it.
Yeah.
Like, because that would... Yeah,
it's right there in your face. You can't. Yeah. He couldn't explain that away. Like they would have to go to him and be like, Governor, is this? What do you think about this? Do you think wheelchair ramps are a part of DEI? It's inclusion.
Right.
That's what DEI is. So, but again, that's kind of where I am when it comes to how you work with, oftentimes against, but then you're using that energy, that same energy that they want to have. Sometimes it's that. What they say, you know, FAFO. It's one of the moments that you can go and find out. You keep on doing this. Sometimes the hate that you are intending can oftentimes come back and hit you. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I was trying to get the Republicans and my colleagues to understand. So this is the kind of energy that we got to have. Not just simply yelling and cursing and calling people out their names, pretending like we're going to beat them. But getting in the room and being able to have a serious conversation and see how we may be able to make compromise.
You and your wife, your ex-wife, both are in politics. You got 2 kids, right? Are they in the politics, or what are they pursuing?
My daughter works in government relations, and my son is he's a student at TSU, and he's a business manager. Business manager. Mm-hmm.
Right. So you're going for the money, you're going strictly.
Hey, man, you know, all my life I've been considered an activist or in the nonprofit world. I'm like, yeah, it's time to start talking about how because if I can rewind the hands of time, it's like make the bread first, then get into politics. So that way you ain't never got to be beholden to nobody or never have to worry about the money. Because politics now is just a rich man's game.
Yeah, it is.
It ain't about the people. It's
Didn't
about.
they spend $1 billion? Like each one of those groups spent like $1 billion on the last presidency, like the last presidential campaigns.
Oh yeah.
North of $1 billion to run for president.
And Elon Musk bought him a presidency like no other.
Do you think it was rigged?
Of course.
Absolutely.
You can't sit up here.
How do you think they rigged it?
You know, technology is something else, man. Technology is something else. And you know, it's every time Donald Trump says it, then you got to believe when he always says they cheated, he literally cheated. Talking about himself.
Yeah, right. He projects a lot.
He definitely projects. You know, it's ironic, and the thing about it is, all of a sudden, it happens, and it's always so poetic. I will never. Barack Obama played golf all the time. I'll never play golf. Hillary Clinton hit all of the. She was operating from her own personal phone. Pete Hegseth, you know, sending out personal, you know, information about military strategy on his own personal phone using some silly app. It always happens that way. He projects, and so he said, Russia, find those. He was telling us out loud, and Donald Trump literally says it, and then the Republicans and the media always says he really didn't mean that, because he said at one rally they stole the election on this and on this date, but we rigged it and we won. He said that. Yeah.
Well, at this point, he could say anything. It really doesn't matter what he says. He can insult his base and they would still vote for him. That's how much he got them swinging from his rotten scrotum. He could insult his base and they would still vote for him.
I don't know why I have not heard you say what his daddy should have did, and
his mama should be embarrassed, and his daddy should have pulled out. Absolutely. I think you pumped the brakes on a statement you were about to make, and you allowed me to go ahead. You yielded to me earlier, but I can't remember. Can you remember what it was that you wanted to say? Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the people besides the fact that you are going to run for the 18th Congressional District?
I am truly excited. And
we need somebody that the people trust, man, that the people are familiar with, you know what I'm saying?
It's not about being familiar with me, Willie. That's what I want to tell you, man. It's not about being familiar with me. It's about being familiar with my work. It's about being
That's
familiar.
That's why I started off with trust.
With the success that I have had. There have been plenty of people that have been in office that, you know, again, it doesn't mean that they've done anything. And I don't want this to be a popularity contest. I want you to judge me based on the work that I have been able to demonstrate. I am that doctor that is literally telling you this is not going to be an easy process. Showing up is not should not be the check mark. Oh, well, he always here. He always come to the church. He always come to the party. Showing up is just not enough. You have to show up and be substantive. You have to have a plan. You have to, and so again, brother, if people like the plan that I have, Jarvis, what are you going to do for the 18th? Got to have a plan. And that plan is to make sure the 18th gets money. Why are we not focused on infrastructure, housing, education, and business? Those are the only 4 areas that we need to focus on. And there's a lot that goes in there. Please don't come back and go, he ain't say nothing about religion. He ain't say nothing about the churches. It all fits in that. But we first got to deal with the tangibles of infrastructure, housing, education, and business. How do we get the money for that? Because we're always underfunded. Within the 18th, there are city council members. There are state representatives, there are state senators, there are county commissioners, there are mayors, there are school board members. We all sit at the table. And we come up with a plan for the 18th. And here's the money that we need. Here are for our infrastructure dollars. Here's what we need. But all of us are going to be on the same page. There's going to be a time in which we meet quarterly to make sure that we're revisiting the business plan that we put forth. This is not about having press conferences. This is not about just showing up and just being boisterous. This is about being substantive and getting a job done. If the people want to go for that, the people understand that, and the people respond to that, then absolutely I'll run. If the people are simply saying, well, Jarvis, he don't never show up. He ain't never. I have town hall meetings, every month when I was in the State House. I have senior citizen events 3 times a year. I'm always there. Maybe I didn't show up at your church, but that's not substantive enough. We have to do better, and so I think if we do that, I resonate with the younger generation. I resonate with the older generation. I obviously resonate with our generation, Gen Xers. We can get this thing done. We can be substantive. And we can have a plan and an identity. Even from the CBC, when I get to the same thing, brother, we got to be one. Did you see Representative Green when he was put out the chambers?
Yep.
First time somebody's ever been escorted out the chambers like that. You know what my biggest disappointment was? Nobody left. Nobody walked out with him. Like, united we stand, divided we fall. Ain't nowhere in the world.
There's a bunch of cowards.
Ain't nowhere in the world you about to escort this 77-year-old brother out who was duly elected by the people, simply speaking his mind as he's talking about protecting Medicaid, and all of y'all are sitting around there with resist shirts on, and you resisted from protecting this brother. Man, the first thing I would have did was, let's go. Man, no, I got him. Come on, we can all walk out together. Because that's what we do. That's what we do. If one of us is going down, man, we're all going down. But, together we're stronger. But to simply just sit there, I was so disappointed, man. And then there was some who wanted to censor him, voted to censor him. Some from his own party. That's absolutely absurd.
See, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you brought that back around, that party. That Democratic Party, man. The Democratic Party really disappointed me in this last election, man, because they saw seats being hijacked from those judgeship seats being hijacked, and they sat on their hands and did not financially aid those Democratic candidates who were being attacked by Republicans who were attacking their credentials. Mm-hmm. Time and time again, they were attacking, but only the black ones, the black judges who had won those. And I'm talking about specifically those judges that were part of the 19, right? Mm-hmm. They were attacking those judges and going after them for their credentials, saying that, no, you can't even run because you're not qualified and all these types. They're attacking sitting judges, saying that it's one thing to attack a judge or somebody that's running for judge and they haven't sat. But these are sitting judges and you're attacking their credentials. Right. And the Democratic Party just sat back and watched like, And what I surmise from that is the Democratic Party support black candidates as long as they can control the black candidate. If they can control you, they will support you. If they can't control you, then you're on your own. You better have enough constituents to just win where the party needs you more than you need the party. Just my theory.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that to a lot. I'm not going to say to a certain extent, because they can't stop us from being elected, because we're elected by the people.
Right.
But I will say...
They have heavy resources.
But I will say this. Let me tell you where I'm so disappointed in Texas. Texas had every opportunity to make sure that we did better than we did for Vice President Harris when she was running. We had a first vice chair of the Democratic Party, which was a sister, but she was pushed back, pushed down, and was not allowed to go out and help campaign, was not allowed to help organize the churches, was not allowed to And when you saw during those caucuses, when you looked on that screen, you was like, where are we? Why aren't we in the picture? And this is the problem when it comes to black people and the Democratic Party. When I use this analogy all the time, when somebody is in high school and then they get their yearbook, what's the very first thing they do when they get their yearbook?
I can't believe I graduated.
But the first thing they do is look for themselves.
Right.
They look for themselves in the book. It's the first thing they do. But the problem with the black community, the reason why we are not showing up as much is because we don't even see ourselves in the picture. Mm-hmm. And so we're not interested anymore. When you look at the yearbook, you go, oh, yeah, my friend. But when you're in it and it's applicable to you, you stare at it a little bit longer. You embrace it more. And the problem is that we don't see ourselves in the picture. And because we don't see ourselves in the picture, we don't participate. And you're starting to see more and more people not fleeing and going over to the Republican Party, just not showing up. You got young black voters that are not showing up. Black men absolutely are just falling by the wayside. Sisters, thank you, appreciate you. We had a Vice President Harris, a female, who absolutely galvanized them. But again, we still have to do more. We have lost and have eroded away the base of the Democratic Party simply because we don't see ourselves in the picture. The Democratic Party better do a better job.
You ever thought about switching sides?
Heck no.
Why not?
No, at the end of the day,
what's the biggest thing? Give me, if you can name a singular thing that prevents you.
The culture
from
wars.
Going over there.
The culture wars.
Okay.
The culture wars. When you think about it, as a human being, I am conservative by nature. You understand? I'm conservative. Do I want to spend money frivolously? No. While I respect the LGBT community, hey man, love who you want to love, but I'm not going to, carry that flag. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to I believe that we need stronger immigration rules and laws. But it's the women's reproductive, man, ain't nowhere in the world I'm going to tell a woman what she can and cannot do with her body, right? So it's the culture wars that absolutely turn me off and turn me away and fight against who the Republicans are. When it comes to business, when it comes to, simple laws that make everyday Texans' lives better, absolutely. We can agree. And I've gotten bills passed. The vocation bill. My first session, I passed the vocational ed bill to put vocation back in schools. TEA, Texas Workforce Commission, have to come together, look at where the jobs are coming in the next 20 years, and then create vocations in that region around the jobs for that area. I put vocation back into school. Republicans signed on to it. I have some criminal justice bills that Republicans signed on to. So we can meet and have common ground, but I can't deal with the culture wars, man. I can't, and so that would make me a non-starter for being a Republican, just simply because the leader of their party is a racist, rapist, and just a morally corrupt individual.
Shit, man, ain't nothing to say after that, bro. I appreciate you for coming on the show. And that's the way to end it right there, man, with some truth. I mean, truth. That boy mama should have been embarrassed. That boy mama should have pulled that. You dig what I'm saying? Man,
talking about that boy Trump.
That boy. Hey, man, thanks for coming on the show.
Man, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate your platform, man. You do a wonderful job, brother. You bring it. You bring the unadulterated, the unfiltered truth, brother. I appreciate that. That's needed oftentimes.
Absolutely.
So, but when we gonna get together and talk about this hip hop museum?
You know what, man?
We got to talk about this.
I think you ought to put it out there to put some pressure on some of the other guys that listen to the podcast too. That got that
Well, we here now. I'm gonna tell you the hip hop museum. We have to embrace the culture, but we got to embrace the positive side of the culture and all the great things that the hip hop community has done, and not always the negative, and how much it has influenced this entire nation, this entire world. But we don't capture that, and I look at a hip hop museum that would look at all of where you guys have come from. It'll create jobs. It'll create a destination site. It'll change, I think, how people look at our communities, because they'll see the positive side of it versus, because they only hear the ghetto boys. They only gonna think negative. They only gonna say these things. Outside world, we know what's up, but so I think it's important, brother. So yeah, I'll put it out there, but you're that brother who have the.
I'm with you, man. I'm riding with you, but just to be clear though, there's a hip hop museum in Harlem.
Yeah.
There's a national. I think they call it a national hip hop museum. But you're talking about doing something. Are you talking about challenging Harlem?
No, I'm not talking about challenging Harlem.
Just having an extension.
Harlem is way up there in New York, man. How I'm gonna get all the way up there? Because I don't know how.
You're just saying recognizing.
I don't know
our
how
culture.
much they're recognizing the down south genre, and how much this down south has really impacted hip hop. I mean, so I'm not challenging Harlem, but what's wrong with having multiple? Because oftentimes we can't all get up to Harlem. Down here, that could be a place down in Houston where a lot of great artists have come out of. We don't get enough credit for the number of major superstars that have come out of Houston that was heavy hitters. We don't get that credit, man. Houston is well respected, so I think I ain't challenging them. We can still do our own. There are cultural art museums all over the country. Just because you got one in D.C. don't mean you can't have one in Houston. Houston has, if people don't know, Houston has more museums than any other city. A lot of people don't even know that.
Now we got to get the hip hop.
Now we got to get the hip hop.
There it is. I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jarvis Johnson. No more talk.